French fry have in common?
Oh, you eat them!
You find them between couch cushions?
No! They all cost more than filing your taxes. When you use IRS Free File, it's free. Get a choice of brand name software and help if you need it. Join the 40 million people who have already saved. Free File. It's fast, it's safe, it's free. Get started at freefile.irs.gov.
Talk 1470, WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Hi, this is Terrence Howard. My mother was the cornerstone of our family. She shaped me as an actor, a musician, as a human being. So when she was diagnosed with colon cancer, it was like our whole family got cancer. And she died when she was only 56, so this is personal. Now, hopefully, my heartbreak is your wake-up call. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cancer killer, but you can prevent this disease. Screening finds precancerous polyps so that they can be removed before they turn into cancer. I've been screened. If you think that you're at an increased risk like I am, ask your doctor when to start screening. And if you're 50 or older, get screened. I don't have my mother anymore, so please, do everything that you can to stay around for yourself and for your family. Screening saves lives.
A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
AM 1470, WNN, with more of what you need to know. Here are the latest from Invite Health with Jerry Hickey, weekdays at 9 on AM 1470, WNN.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
As long as I live.
A storage tank ruptured, and for miles, chemicals were pushing up against the riverbanks.
This was a big deal, and it was going to have a serious impact on communities up and down the river.
I remember the moment. This local guy came up to me and said, "They call the guard out for this stuff?"
You probably thought we were all about hurricanes, tornadoes, fighting Mother Nature.
Hey, it's a chemical spill. It's a disaster.
It affects the water supply, threatens wildlife.
We're talking about the health of entire communities and people's livelihoods.
You bet we're ready for these kinds of things.
We were out there with booms to prevent the spill from expanding.
We're responsible for protecting and monitoring the sensitive wetlands.
I also remember the moment that same guy came up to me and said, "I don't know what we would have done if they hadn't called the guard up."
Learn more about how you can protect your friends, families, neighbors, and the environment. Everything that makes up your community. Go to NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Florida National Guard. Aired by the Florida Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Talk health. Talk wealth. Talk politics. Talk 1470. WNN.
This is the story of Mrs. Clark, who has lived on this very block most of her 80 years, often seen walking to town or serving brownies to the neighborhood kids, and everyone loves her. 2 years ago, a certain family member moved in to look after Mrs. Clark, and that's when everything changed. Mrs. Clark became the victim of elder abuse.
Elder abuse is often closer to home than you think or want to believe. McGruff, the crime dog here. The National Crime Prevention Council wants you to know the signs of elder abuse. Bruises, isolation, reduced activities, poor hygiene, depression, and financial problems. Protect yourself and speak out if you recognize signs of abuse in others.
Elder abuse is a crime that affects over 2 million senior citizens every year. Even more astounding, it's most commonly committed by a family member or someone they trusted. If you suspect abuse, contact your local law enforcement agency. To learn more, go to ncpc.org/seniors. That's ncpc.org/seniors. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Department of Justice.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show, the place to fine-tune your swing, dress for the course, club, or cruise, and get tips on the best places to play and stay at the right price. Vacation or staycation, host Dan Schub, along with his expert co-hosts and guests, will tell you where to go. To play golf and vacation, that is. Now, here's Dan.
Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show. I'm your host, Dan Schub, and tonight, like we usually do at this time, we're going to talk some golf. We'll talk a little travel, and we do have a great show for you tonight. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to be chatting with professional golfer or a golf instructor as well, author of The Single Plane Golf Swing. And that's a real simple and a little different approach to teaching golf and swinging a club, but can be highly successful. We'll hear a little bit about it. We'll also hear his take on the U.S. Open, and that would be Todd Graves. And I know he has a lot to say about the Open. I've got a lot to say about the Open. I'll save some of it to talk with him about, and obviously a lot of people spoke about it. They're still talking about it. But then a little bit later in the show, we will be talking with a gentleman by the name of Dan Blumenstock, and holds a couple of titles. He's the director of a company called Fennel Holdings, but more importantly, to me at least, he's the chair and chairman of the Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Charleston is just one of my favorite cities. A lot of people love to travel there. Obviously, they've had some issues of late, and, kind of sad because you just don't want to hear people saying anything that isn't perfect. But they really have come out of their troubles from the shooting there recently, and the city has banded together, and I want to hear about it not only from somebody who lives there, but somebody who promotes the area. And like I said, it's a place that I can't wait to get back to myself. I always love it when I get to visit Charleston. And also, typically our shows, we follow a very, very familiar format, and I want to say usually right around this time I introduce my co-host, Jess Frank. And while still a sponsor for the time being, he's not sitting beside me because he has a different gig. He's out there teaching some folks on Friday nights. So hopefully he'll be a guest or come back on the show in the future when he has some time. But in the meantime, it always was really cool to have him here and have an opportunity to learn from him. But that's why we've got Todd, who's going to present a tip for everybody as well tonight with his different style of teaching. And hopefully it'll be something that will help all of your game. Watching the Open sometimes helps all of our game as well. We get to watch some of the better players that are out there, and it's been told, many people have told me at least, that the typical amateur golfer is better off watching the women play, and the U.S. Open is happening right now for women. But watching the U.S. Open for men, particularly some of the players having difficulty out there on the course, whether it was putting on the greens or some of the fairway shots or tee shots as well. Obviously, Tiger, I think everybody takes joy sometimes in watching him have his difficulties and his troubles. I saw him top a shot out there in the fairway. Makes the pros look a little bit more human and makes us all feel a little bit better about our game. But obviously, golf is not easy for any of us, and the pros included. And, the players had a lot to say. The USGA makes the golf course as difficult as they possibly can. They try and protect par. They try and make this the true test of the year. The golfers don't like to look silly out there. They like to look professional, as they should. And when it gets a little bit too difficult and a little bit too tricked up, they get a little bit hot under the collar because they don't, they want to go low. They want the red scores up there. They want to be under par. They want to be making perfect shots. Their sponsors want that as well. There's a lot more at stake, even than just perhaps the purse from that particular week. But this golf course, I got to tell you, I don't know. In my opinion, at least, I like it difficult. I like it different. Nothing wrong with link-style golf. It's a nice change of pace. There aren't that many golf courses out there that you get an opportunity to play, and that this is a golf course that the public can play as well. And, but those putting greens, I'm the kind of guy that has a difficult time on a really consistent and a putting green that, isn't as tricked up. If I hit a shot that lands a couple of inches from the hole, I would like to think that it's going to stay somewhere near the hole, and I have a chance to follow it up and sink that putt. So I don't know. One thing that was kind of interesting, a place that I've recently played at here in Florida, which is a link-style course, and usually I save most of these deals for the end of the show, but I just thought that it was more appropriate as I'm talking a little bit about the U.S. Open to mention this particular golf course. They also did buy some advertising, at least locally here, on the coverage of Fox, which is a whole nother story that we could talk about at length, the coverage, if you could call it that. I hope it's better this weekend when I watch the ladies play on Fox. But golf course by the name of Streamsong, which somewhere in the middle of nowhere in between Tampa and Orlando, which is very, very reminiscent of what we saw this past week, what you may see when you watch St. Andrews for the Open Championship. StreamSong, but they've done it right. And up at StreamSong, you've got that link style feel. But you have greens that are just beautifully manicured and consistent and true and fast, and it's really the best of everything. And it's an expensive place to play if you go there in season. But this time of year, if you can handle a little bit of heat and humidity, they do have some specials that I recently noted. The month of July, the entire month of July, they've got a package going on called the Scotland package. And, of course, it's to coincide with the Open Championship over at St. Andrews. But rates start at just $199 per person per night based on double occupancy, or $258 per night based on single. And it's a minimum of 2-night stays. But these packages do include 36 holes of golf per person and a deluxe guest room in the lodge, which is a beautiful, beautiful lodge. Even breakfast every single day. So if you want to get that real feel of link-style golf, but you want to do it where you still have greens that you can putt on, I recommend that you try this beautiful resort called StreamSong. So StreamSongResort.com. You can get more information. Look for their Scotland package. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to just take a real quick break, and then we're going to be back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Open Championship. We're going to find out maybe a good tip for everybody, and about a new book that's out as well that may help you with your game. So stay tuned for more of the Golf and Travel Show. We'll be right back. And we are back. And you heard a little bit about my comments in the U.S. Open, and there's just so much to talk about, good and bad. But also, of course, every week we try and give a little bit of knowledge, a little tip for those folks that prefer to go out there and play themselves rather than only watching it on TV. And we got a little bit of a different take on all of that, and maybe some more from a fellow who recently published a book called The Single Plane Golf Swing. It's a little bit of a different approach to teaching the golf swing, and there's a lot of people that believe in it and a lot of people that maybe haven't heard about it. So we want to find out a little bit more. So the author of the book, The Single Plane Golf Swing, is with us, none other than Todd Graves. Todd, are you with us?
I'm with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about your book and about kind of the premise that it's based on, and a little bit different, and I think our listeners will enjoy it. But first, I did want to continue a little bit and find out from somebody who teaches the game what you thought about the U.S. Open.
A lot of people didn't like the golf course and the venue and the players. Some of the players complained about it. I like to see major championships challenge the tour players, and I think that it did that. And I like to see scoring difficult. I like to see them have a hard time. I don't like to see 20 under par win a major championship. So from that perspective, I actually really enjoyed the tournament. One thing I didn't like about the golf course, if I had to pick out one thing, I'm not a big fan of drivable par fours on the finishing holes of a major championship. It kind of leaves it up in the air. So many things can happen, and it doesn't really challenge. It doesn't take two good ball striking shots on a drivable par four. It only takes one. So it kind of takes some of the ball striking out of play towards the end of the round. So that was one negative to me about it. But all in all, I thought it was a great test, and I thought it was exciting. I mean, it was great spectator golf from the TV's vantage point. Anyway, as long as they were drawing the lines on the golf ball where you could see where it was going, I thought it was pretty good.
That was the next thing I was going to get to, and I get the press releases from Fox every day, and they're bragging about how viewership is 50% up from the year before, and of course a lot of that had to do with it was in prime time, which maybe had everything to do with it, and a lot of it had to do with the players. I don't know how much, if any of it, had to do with Fox.
Yeah, right. That's true. it's the major championships are going to draw people anyway, because they are going to bring out the best players in the world, and so it's hard to tell. And thank God they were drawing those lines on those shots, because the colors of the golf course and stuff, very difficult to see the ball flight. So they did a good job on that.
It reminded me when they first, it may have been Fox as well, and they started putting that little blue spot on the hockey puck so that people could follow a hockey puck on that broadcast. And it was different for sure. And being a guy who probably shoots a little bit higher score than you do, I kind of like when it's more difficult out there. I think it kind of levels the playing field, and it gives different people more opportunities, perhaps, when the wind is blowing or the rough is up or the greens are difficult. You kind of never know what you're going to get, yet the cream did kind of rise to the top.
When I played out there and I played in tournaments, the PGA Tour particularly, many people don't know this, but they take the bunkers are the same consistency from week to week. So when the tour goes in and takes over a golf course, they make sure that the bunkers have the same amount of sand in them. So when players play week to week, they're hitting the same type of bunker shots. For the average guy who plays golf, every bunker is different. You play in Florida and one bunker has 2 inches of sand. You play in Oklahoma and it's hard pan.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff they do on the tour to make it playable for the players. Sometimes it seems like, and they should make it more difficult. And when you see a major championship like that, the golf course, because it is set up to be so difficult, I actually enjoy it. Just like you said, I enjoy seeing those guys be human out there. So.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, us regular guys, we watch the pros play. We look at the equipment that they're using, and of course we all run out and buy that same equipment thinking it's going to help our swing, and that's probably not true. And it's the same kind of thing, I guess, with the bunkers in the sand. We watch, these beautiful shots that they hit, and then we go out there in less groomed bunkers, and we don't feel quite as good or anything. But I guess that's one reason why somebody like yourself, who has a better understanding of it, wants to help the average golfer and maybe help improve their swing, so instead of dreaming about that pro swing, they can actually play better golf.
Well, first of all, I know what good players do to become good. I mean, I'm a good player myself, and I've seen players develop. I've seen all levels of players develop, and I've played with some players that are much better than me, and I see what guys have to do to get good at this golf game. And then on the other side of that, I see what amateurs don't do, and I just watch it every single day, and I can tell just from talking to somebody on the phone almost what kind of player they are, just from how they say they practice their game and what they do. So, I mean, I built a company, and what I do now is I really try to help the average guy get better and simplify his game. And really, to me, that's more fun than me actually playing the game of golf anymore. So, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I try to help the average guy understand what it's going to take and then simplify it for him.
Wow. Hey, I admire what you're trying to do, because golf is difficult, and it's quite a challenge that you have to help folks, but I guess there's tremendous satisfaction when you do. But can we talk a little bit now? I know that the style you teach, your book, it's based on a fellow by the name of Mo Norman, and somebody like myself, I've read about him, I've heard about him. He was a very, very interesting guy, but not everybody knows about him. And before we talk a little bit about his techniques and why you teach it, can you just tell a little bit about the man? Because he was quite fascinating.
Mo may be one of the greatest stories in golf. And when I was a younger guy growing up, and when I was aspiring to be a player and getting ready to go to college and play, I had heard of this guy, Mo Norman, but he was just like this mysterious guy like Ben Hogan. You never really knew. He almost wasn't real, but he did hear stories about him, and he was this amazing ball striker. Good players talked about how great he was, but he was just kind of this mystery. And but he was regarded as the best ball striker that's ever lived. But he was this reclusive guy who didn't have a lot of friends. He didn't go on the PGA Tour and win a bunch of tournaments. But in Canada, he was regarded as one of the greatest players that's ever lived. And he just was one of those guys that no one really got to know very well. And I basically, when I was struggling with my game as a player in the early 90s, sought him out because I saw that he probably had figured out a simpler way to hit a golf ball. And I sought him out and learned from him. And we call it the single plane swing, and it's really, Mo is really that exemplifies the model of that. But Mo figured out, he discovered a way to swing a golf club that makes it easier, and then now we have the science and data to show that.
Well, I heard stories. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not that he played in many, many tournaments. Some of them were like not considered official. That he may have won more events than anyone. That he would do shows or maybe just gamble with guys to win. I mean, he was like a barnstorming kind of a guy. He played a lot. He traveled a lot, but not necessarily all of it was kind of officially recorded. Is that quite accurate?
Well, in Canada, they have their own tour events, and they have their own professional golf tour, and I did some numbers on it. Now, I don't know exactly how many tournaments Mo played. I could never come up with a number of how many he played, but the years that he did play, if I calculated, if you played pretty much the maximum amount of tournaments that year, he won almost one of every 3 tournaments he played in, and that's as good a record as Tiger Woods when he was playing his best golf. So, it's kind of the deal. The guys in Canada used to say if Mo shows up, everybody's playing for second place. There are some guys that would play in the same tournament with Mo, and they'd go out there and shoot a good score, 68, 3 or 4 under par, and Mo would shoot 61. And they said they didn't have a chance because Mo just was totally dominate when they were playing. So, there's tons of stories about Mo like that, but he wasn't well publicized. He never really came down and played on the PGA Tour. Golf when Mo played was at a time when really, guys after they finished the tournament, they wouldn't have another tournament. They'd go home and teach golf on the weekend, and Mo would kind of disappear, and then he'd show up at the tournament again. So he just was a very reclusive guy that just hung around a small group of friends and just basically dominated amateur and professional golf in Canada when he was playing.
Now, I'm looking at a picture of the cover of the book, and I'm looking at the title, The Single Plane Golf Swing, and for me, I'm not very scientific. I have a hard time grasping too much science. Would I be wrong to think that this is a simpler method of teaching a golf swing?
I'm sorry.
Is it simpler? Is there less moving parts? Is it easier to grasp or get a grip on? I mean, again, I haven't read the book. I'm just looking at the picture on the cover and the title, and to me, that's what you're trying to convey. Is that true?
Exactly. I didn't cover a lot of the science and data in the book just because you can't really learn a golf swing from science and data. So what I covered in the book were just how to put your body in a position and feel it move in an easier way. And there's things behind it. So, for example, the setup position. Every good player has to get to the most important moment of the swing, which is impact. So if you said to somebody, I want to simplify your swing, what I'm really saying to you is, I need to simplify your ability to get to that moment of impact. So by doing that, if I said to you, I'm going to do that with less rotation, less movement, and less stress, you've simplified the golf swing, and that's exactly what the single plane golf swing does. That's what Mo figured out intuitively: how to move the body with less rotation, less stress, and less moving parts.
Now, I know I'm assuming you're not the only person who teaches this methodology, but it's not extremely common. Is there a reason for that? I mean, do people fight this? I mean, it just doesn't seem that that's what, when you go to your local pro at the golf course, that this is what they're going to teach. Is there a reason why?
It's a great question, and we get that question all the time. Now, why don't you see this swing on the PGA Tour? Why aren't more people doing this? And, if I had to pick out one guy on the PGA Tour that's close and is very close to what we teach, would be Steve Stricker. And then this kid that just came out, Bryson DeChambeau, that just won the NCAA championship. He's still in college. He has a single plane swing. He's almost identical to what we teach. I guess you don't see it because there's one basic principle that's taught in golf that violates what we would say is the basis of simplicity, which is hanging your arms down. Some people call it the athletic position, but when you hang your arms straight down, which almost every conventional golfer teaches, you basically make it more difficult to reach impact. So we believe, and our theory is that as long as you're taught that, just hanging the arms down, we call that a two-plane golf swing. It's more complicated, and that's what's taught out there. So basic golf instruction, which we call the conventional swing, is a hang your arms straight down, address position, and right off the bat, from the very beginning of that teaching, you have a problem.
It's funny because I'm sitting here in the studio and I'm hanging my arms down. I'm trying to follow along with you. Now, in trying to teach this, obviously you have this book, so you must believe that somebody could read the book and then go out to the driving range, I guess, and practice this step by step. Is it I mean, what kind of improvement can somebody get in this way? Do they need to find a local instructor that believes in this and can help them, or can they just read this book and do it themselves?
Well, the key to reading the book, the book is great because what you can do is you have a visual reference similar to a video, but a book's actually, I think, a little better than video sometimes because you can flip open the book and you can compare yourself to the pictures in the book. And if people will do that simple step of doing a quick comparison, look in a mirror or have somebody look at them and go, hey, I look like that picture. The key is getting the address position, the starting position correct, because that's where the simplification starts. If you can get the proper address position, it puts the body and spine in a position to make it easier to get to impact. So you really have to become and if you're going to read a book or even get a video, but especially if you're going to read this book, you've got to become a good mimicker. You have to mimic what you see, and that's really the learning process for anybody. And if you can't do it that way, you need to hire an instructor because what's the instructor going to do? But he in his mind, he knows what he wants to see. He's going to put you into whatever he wants to see. He's doing the same thing. So people have to become somewhat adequate at teaching themselves. The book helps that because you have those pictures you can refer to. So if you are going to get the book, you have to match the pictures as best you can.
So what you're saying is I'm assuming it's possible to kind of take this one step at a time without totally ruining your weekend match with your buddies, unlike Tiger, who, rebuilds everything from the beginning and starts all over from scratch?
Yeah. Well, I always recommend people, go out there to the range and get it right and do it and then go play. So I wouldn't run to the golf course and try to do it on the golf course, but sure, go to the range, try a few things, check it out. It's going to feel a little different at first, but the rewards of simplifying it, the number one search term in on the internet when it comes to golf is consistency. So what you're trying to do when you simplify somebody's swing, you're trying to help them become more consistent. And that's what we see happening to our students is they're making more solid contact more often. The ball's flying in the direction they want it to. Golf becomes more fun because they're more consistent. So if you want to get that consistency, you got to simplify and just get in these positions and move less and hit the ball, straighter more often. And that's really what it's all about.
So somebody who's trying to teach the masses with a book, for golf at least, how do you get feedback? I mean, typically people, they write a book, they'll come on a radio show like this, or they'll do a book tour, signings at bookshops or whatever. But teaching pros often are working with people at the range. They give them a concept, and all of a sudden the ball goes straight or it goes further, and they get that gratification, they get that feedback. What kind of feedback can you get for this book?
Well, a lot of the people that we have other resources as well. We have an online coaching program where people will, let's say they look at the book, they go practice, they send us a video of what they're doing, so we can actually do online coaching with them. And that we have probably 500 members of our online coaching program. So when we have instructional videos, we also have golf schools that travel across the U.S., and plus I have instructors placed across the U.S. where they can go see as well. So we get to see a lot of the people that actually have seen the book or read the book. So now the people who have the book that I've never seen before, they just comment about how great the book was, how easy is it to follow and understand, how it helped their game. And we'll see those postings about the book, when they do reviews on the book. But the book is pretty new. It's only been out since January. So we're just now starting to see those reviews of the book coming in. And to be quite honest, it's the first book I've ever written. I actually have 11 instructional videos I produced before the book. Most people do it the other way around.
Yeah.
So most of my feedback comes from people who have seen my instruction prior to the book. The book is just a nice format to graphically lay out the swing in pictures, which people tend to really appreciate because they can the videos go too fast when you learn instruction from a video. That's our feedback from video. People have to rewind it, stop and look at it, rewind it, stop and look at it, watch it 10 times. A book, you just look at the page and you can study it, and it's not going anywhere. So it's just a different format for the instruction that we've had over the years on our videos.
Okay, and of course, now that we know that you offer the book and you have the video feedback and you got regional schools, so if somebody is listening to us talk about the single plane golf swing and the teachings of Mo Norman, and they would like to, learn all about it, how would they find out more about what you have to offer?
If they want to just get the book, they can go to the singleplanegolfswing.com. That the book is offered on its own website. If they want to find out more information about what we do as far as all of our instruction, they go to monormangolf.com, and they can actually buy the book on that website as well. That is our main website. they can see all the products we offer as well. So they can go to thesingleplanegolfswing.com or monormangolf.com.
Well, while I know that the golf industry is fighting to get more people to play golf, I think every single person who plays golf wants to get better. So you certainly have a lot of people to draw upon, right?
Yeah, well, there's a ton. Yeah, I mean,